Britain's welfare budget cuts. Too little, too late. Welcome to Mark and Pete, two blokes with half an opinion. Now, here's a thought.
Cutting your cloth. A Chancellor called Rachel Reeves needed to pull up her economic sleeves, so she cut her cloth to shreds for more thrifty threads to stop what wasteful welfare weaves. Yes, it can get very sharp, those cuts. And in fact, Rachel Reeves is set to make several billions of pounds worth of cuts to the welfare. What does this mean for people who are on welfare today? In fact, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, said our current situation is unsustainable. We've seen a huge rise in that welfare budget. Yes, it is growing and increasing, and we'll talk about the numbers in more detail. Mr. Pete, I ask you, these welfare cuts, is it just simply too little, too late?
Well, Mr. Mark, this is one of the things that as Labour has struggled with. Their political support is, for the large part, from unions and other groups of people who are supporting them because they're going to run welfare programs. They're going to be in favour of high payouts to people who need support. They're the caring party, so they're going to spend taxpayers' money. Now um, we know the criticism of this, the classic Margaret Thatcher line. Well, the problem with socialists is they run out of other people's money to spend.
Yes.
There are critiques of it, but what I'm saying is that's the view of them. Whereas the Conservative Party was seen as the Tory Party being the nasty party. And those are the ones who can make cuts. Those are the ones who are putting in place austerity measures. But what we've actually seen is Labour are the ones doing it. But too late, I think, for political reasons. They couldn't rush into this. They didn't have the support for it, even from their own MPs, because they were voted for by people who didn't expect this to happen. But in the end, it's reality. It
Yes.
just isn't enough money, Mark.
Well, unfortunately, this is the case. And in fact, what's interesting is that when Labour came into government last year, 2024, it was very
Yeah.
clear that they were inheriting a big set of problems. But some
Mhm.
of the obvious things that sort of come to the table. Why did they not actually start doing this last year? Now,
Yeah.
at the time, in October of 2024, when the budget was set, there was a forecast that the welfare state was due to go from £64.7 billion up to a projected 2029 to 2030 of £100 billion and slightly more and rising. Now, of course, what we now realize is that the strategy that we're seeing that was Rachel Reeves' investment plans isn't paying off, meaning basically, if you try to balance the budgets, it's not looking great, is it, in 2025? Now, the fact of the matter is, where the cuts are going to take place isn't entirely clear. But one of the areas that some people say is it's probably going to affect areas such as the long term sickness benefits, typically paid by the universal credit. And that's one of the things that will certainly affect a lot of people. So, when I think of where people are today, people have been planning their budgets, they've seen costs go up from all sorts of areas of their lives. Without that universal credit, Mr. Pete, I think that some people are going to suffer even more than perhaps we were really anticipating.
Yes, and I think this, well, it's a problem in two ways. Of course, it's a problem if you've got a cut coming along and you weren't anticipating it. You're not able to budget for it. So in this scenario, it's not that I've just outlined. It's not that the cuts themselves are bad. It's simply that they're foisted upon you. I mean, with more warning, with more expectation, people need a lot of warning for this sort of thing if they're going to prepare for a cold winter and they don't have
Yes.
the money to pay. It's something you can't just swallow. You need to be prepared in various different ways. There's ways you can get other income. Maybe there's ways you can adjust your home to keep warm. Maybe you can actually move in with some relatives. Whatever it is, you need time to do it. And maybe you just need time to realise that the Labour Party you voted for are actually the Austerity Party. So, there's that psychological issue there. So being in the position where relatively suddenly this has been placed, and the people are going to find it difficult. They're going to struggle, and
Yes, I think
yeah,
so.
and I think that's a big issue.
Well, it is, but the Office for Business Responsibility has concluded that, ironically, 4 billion of the 12 billion pounds that was promised way back when the Conservative manifesto promised to cut 12 billion in 2015 never actually happened. And the
Mm,
reason that it didn't happen was, again, no surprise, ministers were under tremendous pressure, forced to change their policies, and after a political backlash, some of those cuts were not made. Yes, there was a little bit. But the point being is, this problem has reached now breaking point, hasn't it? Now, what does Rachel Reeves
yeah, sure.
do? Now, Rachel Reeves has to make some cuts, of course. But here's the thing, what I think could happen. You mentioned about the Conservatives traditionally being the nasty party. I think we might have to pass that lovely mantle over to the Labour Party, because at the end of the day, in this term, and they've got another 4.5 years up to, that's something that they can make some headway in starting to cut the budgets. But here's the thing, my biggest concern is, are they going to do it too quickly? And what I think is going to happen is that what I think she's going to do is she is going to cut some of the key areas, whether it be disability benefits, mental health investments, or certainly the support that's been there in recent years. That will all go, not completely. Again, just to be clear, it's not as though we won't have a welfare state. We will still have a welfare state, but I
Oh yeah,
think it's going to have to come back in terms of the type of investments. Now, the thing here is, what I would recommend is, I think that she's going to have to go beyond the term of the Labour Party, because I think rather than do it in this term, what might make more sense for people to plan, and that's the key thing here, folks, plan longer term, is to aggregate it out and put it over for the next 6 to 8 years. Now, the problem with that is that politically, as I'm sure we all know, the Labour has no guarantee that they're going to win the next election. So
yeah,
they have to make
absolutely, yeah,
key decisions here. But what I'm really concerned about is, it's not just about the welfare, is it? It's about all the other things that people having to suffer from. If you're not in a job, if you're got a disability, or if you've got some issues, you do rely significantly on those welfare bills, or those payments. And if you don't have a choice, what does that mean? Now, this is where I think we come back to the criteria, because I think in order to qualify for it, I think the criteria needs to be a bit clearer to the public, because at the moment, I don't think it's really clear where the actual cuts and who is actually going to be cut. That's the thing which I think is really
yeah,
not clear enough today.
yeah. So can I just speak to this? Just from this is something that's been this particular issue I'm going to highlight here is something that's been recognised in the private sector for a long time, and in the service industry, that if things are explained, people take it better if they're losing out, and if they know why. In other words, take for example, so take a particular service, a train service. Now you don't. It doesn't just say there's a train delayed, or there's a train delayed passenger action. It will say on the screens and announcements, um, you know, 5 pedestrians walked onto the track at certain station, and tell you what happened and what the problem is. And when you know the problem, you are able to accept it emotionally, psychologically. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to be 5 hours late for work, or whatever it is, because this has happened. And there are lots of other examples we could give of how now explanations are given, and when they're not given, things fall apart. Think about well, one of the many mistakes during the COVID-19 supposed pandemic. Um, there were a lot of obscuring of the actual facts and lack of explanation, and so
yeah.
therefore, people immediately suppose the worst and want to rebel. And so, what you're going to have here, unless you get detailed, proper explanations of what's happening and why, what's needed to be done, and why that isn't, just be open about it. Actually, if she's
Well,
able to do that, if Rachel Reeves is able to do that, she's going to make a big difference in how politics has been conducted in this country for a number
yeah.
of years now. And also, she's going to be more likely to succeed, including with the
Well,
markets, who if they understand what's happening well in advance, they're not going to be jittery and therefore, cause a downturn in the market and a run on the pound and all those things you don't want.
well, here's one of the things that has caused the problem. Because in 2020 to 2021, the COVID pandemic meant that more people have been going on to benefits than off them. And according
Yeah,
to the OBR
sure.
forecast, the share of the working age population in receipt of incapacity benefit has risen from 7% in 2024 to a record high of what they project to be 7.9%. And the
Yeah.
reasons are as follows: the damaging and lasting impact of the pandemic on physical health, those who are younger on their mental health. And that's
Hmm.
one of the reasons that has been identified. And so what they're saying is the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, is that the number of people aged 18 to 24 are not in either education, in employment, or on a training scheme. And it has risen up to 907,000 at the last of year, 2024, 30% increase on the level of the year before, and so on. So the point being is that there is an impact on what we have seen in the past. The problem is, what is the solution? And I think if Rachel Reeves was to try and balance her budget, not just on welfare, where there are needs for cuts, but I think it's about investment in younger generation as well. Again, it's not just about that generation, but they have been hit hard. And so if you think about those people who are not either working or that they have been impacted because of the COVID lockdowns and many others, you can't just sort of chuck the generation out onto the streets and say get on with it, because it's been damaging. I mean, I know that when we were younger, yes, there were lots of issues, we had many challenges. You either agreed or disagreed with the Thatcher policies or the Labour policies of the 80s and the 90s, but the fact of the matter is you still had the opportunity to go about your normal life. We didn't have a normal life in 2020 onwards. And so what that means is anybody who's trying to go into society today has got a lot more problems on their plate. So maybe that's something where Rachel Reeves has an opportunity to say, look, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is how I'm going to boost that investment in the right areas where there has been damage. Because just simply taking money away isn't the solution. So, what are your thoughts in terms of investment on that generation that were affected by COVID?
Well, yes. I'm not against it. I suppose would be the short answer. But I think that what's needed really is a proper strategy for growth altogether,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that isn't what we're seeing. And without that growth,
We're seeing
yes,
growth in
good
debt,
to
though.
yeah,
That's the problem.
that's part of the issue. Yes, and without that growth altogether, yes, good. Yeah, I'm not against it, and it's good feel good factor as well to try and invest in people who are affected. There's a lost generation, people who coming into the workforce during the COVID period, all that sort of thing. Yes, great, that is a good thing to do. But behind all this, behind all the issues with having to bring in austerity measures, is one problem: the economy needs to grow enough to be able to
Yes.
afford it, and to be
Yes.
able to afford even the reduced welfare bills that we're going to be having. And to do that, they've got to make a change in mindset. It's got to be reduction in regulation. There's got to be a freeing up of enterprise, and there's got to be, I think, just a massive reduction in tax judiciously, not necessarily, not all tax, but judiciously certain tax, types of business tax to encourage new business to come into the country and not run away screaming. Without that, I think you'd agree, Mark. I mean, you're the business expert of the partnership here. Without that, there just isn't any point. Whenever the country's not going to turn it around.
I know, and what's worse is that with national insurance increases, employers are
Mm.
very worried. Then they're putting basically freezes on recruitment. This is not a great timing. So it is about timing, and it's about mood, and it's about seeing not just short but medium and long term gains. The bottom line is that Rachel Reeves now has to rethink her strategy, and I don't just mean about welfare cuts. It is about investment, and at the moment, the policies that she had in 2024 are not working. It's now
So,
time to change.
so as we draw this episode to a close, I think we can say, Mark, we're broadly approving, just a little bit approving the Labour government, which we haven't done for some time, because at least there seems to be a recognition of the problem.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's a good
Well, I
thing.
wonder what our listeners think. I mean, is there anybody out there, wherever you are, whether you are, coming, towards the end of your career, whether you're starting your career, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think, Pete?
Yes. Let us know. Go to markandpete.com. Make sure you're subscribed. Then you can make a comment on this and every episode. But that's it from Mark and myself for this week. Catch you next time.